But it was one of the most awkward moments of my life because I'm looking over at my buddy Zach and his eyes are real big like, Slate, bro, you better just hold tight here, man. And he was like, oh,
she went,
so
hit on you right
so
after
awkward.
In the morning, I'm making waffles.
Whoever said orange was the new pink was seriously disturbed.
And when it comes to huge openings, a lot of people think of me.
Just call me a fuck ass.
Brilliant. Scary. I get nasty when I'm horny.
Hello, and welcome to not another 2001 movie podcast, a program exploring art in video form released during the first year of a chaotic century. Today, we're going to run amok and strike fear in all the unfortunates who live in Whitechapel. I'm Slate, and I'm terribly sorry for that poor rendition of a British accent.
I'm Allison.
I'm Josh.
Alright, can we cut it? I'll just, try again. Sorry about that, guys. It's been a long, long, long time since I've had to do a British accent.
You didn't have to do it.
Listen. Better than Heather Graham's, okay?
Was she even trying?
Alright, whatever. Anyways, before we get into the movie, which pertains to that amazing accent that should win me an Emmy and an Oscar together, and a Tony, possibly. I want to know about the first true crime case that got your all's attention that you really just couldn't get enough information about.
This was tough for me because I don't really get into true crime stuff. Like, I like true crime. I've listened to some podcasts. Criminal was one that I enjoy that I've listened to quite a bit. It's been a while since I've listened to it, and those are like little one-off things, kind of hidden, not really hidden things, but, they're kind of more under the radar type stuff, I guess. Going back, though, just thinking of the ones that, obviously OJ, but I was like probably a little too young. Still, like, I was aware of it, by the time I was like in elementary school and in middle school especially, but not really super aware of it. But I remember, like, the Elizabeth Smart thing is something that came to mind as the abduction, the woman who, or she was a girl at the time, abducted. And is it Casey Anthony? I know we've talked about her, that case, but I feel like I'm thinking of something else. There was a woman, maybe it was Casey Anthony. Lacey Peterson. That's what I'm thinking.
Lacey Peterson was the one that, like, Gone Girl is kind of loosely based off of.
Okay.
And they believe her husband murdered her. But Casey Anthony was the one that they believe murdered her daughter.
Okay, so it's not her either, but Lacey Peterson is another one that I was thinking of. But it's maybe not even true crime, but it's more of like a news story that kind of was treated like a true crime case. There was this, I can't remember her name, Allison, you might know. There was a woman, about the time you and I were in middle school, Slade, who was, like, legally brain dead. But she hadn't had signed a, what is her name?
Yes, fuck, it begins with a V.
I know it's kind of like it's kind of like a name. It's not Shivago, but it's something like that.
Terry Shivago.
Oh, so it is Shivago. Okay, Terry Shivago.
Chiavo.
Okay, yeah.
That name sounds very loosely familiar, but
Terry. So
I'm not
the case. I do remember. So it wasn't. I mean, I guess it was. I mean, it was treated the way it was treated in media coverage. It was sort of like some of this stuff. Like, I remember it being blanket to blanket coverage all the time of this case, and it's basically like a like, what is your rights as someone who's in this situation and you haven't, and what is the family's rights and that kind of stuff. So that's the one that really left a big impression on me, even though it's not like a murder or an abduction or anything, but it's still in the legal realm. And I just remember being like, we would sit and watch that in my art class in middle school. I'm like, And I never crossed my mind, why the fuck is this on TV in our middle school art class?
And our art class, especially, I was like, I could see you maybe using that for, I don't know, philosophy or civics
studies,
or something, yeah.
Hey, our girl from Ghost World could have made some kind of cool art out of that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure.
I mean, subliminally, maybe my teacher, she was trying to motivate us to do something. And that teacher, actually, she's really cool. She's probably the one middle school teacher I actually, she helps with horror conventions and stuff around, the States. She's cool. Yeah, she's a cool lady. So.
Okay. What about you, Allison?
Yeah, something immediately came to mind. It was like a very distant memory, and I was like, "Oh my god, I have to go track this down." So I've probably mentioned on the podcast before that I started reading like Stephen King when I was like 10. Sure. My mom had this massive bookshelf.
You started early, girl.
early. And I would just pick books off of her shelf and read. And I remember, I don't know if this was a book my mother had gotten or my sister had gotten, but it was early 90s. I think it was 94 when the book came out. Mm-hmm. And it's a case from Lexington in the mid 80s of a man named Michael Turpin was murdered, and his wife apparently also had a girlfriend on the side named Karen Brown, and Karen Brown apparently conspired with some other dude to kill Michael because she and Elizabeth wanted to be together. And I remember reading it, and of course I'm 12, and I'm just like, oh my god, this happened in Kentucky, and they're mentioning Keeneland and the university and all this stuff that's familiar. And then I was also like, oh my god, and it's lesbian murder. It was so scandalous to me because in my 12-year-old brain. But I was like, oh my god, what was that book called? And I went down this massive rabbit hole. I finally found it, and the title is stupider than I remembered. It's called Fatal Seduction. And if you Google that, there's a bunch of different...
Good luck.
Right, but it is by Rena Vicini is the author. And there's not even a Wikipedia page for it. I found it you can get it on Amazon. I'm going to send it to y'all in the chat just so you could see it. This is from the Goodreads site, but
when we start our OnlyFans for the pod, Allison's live reading of this book is...
I have to track it down first. But yeah, it was probably the first time OJ came out, that whole thing happened that year too, but the first time I was reading a book and I'm like, oh, I'm reading something about a real life case, and this is very interesting, rather than, reading fiction and weird supernatural stuff, which was my usual want.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so for me, I was always, I don't know when or how I got into true crime, but something's wrong with me, I guess, because I always was into serial killers and serial murders, anything that I could pick up to learn more about, Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy and Dahmer and Ed Gein, just all of that stuff always fascinated me. I don't know, and of course, the OJ thing, as soon as the 10-hour long ESPN documentary that was really unfiltered came out, I dove really deep into that. And, but ultimately, there's two cases that, really hit close to home, that I was pretty, taken aback by. Actually, one of the cases, when my uncle was having some legal troubles, his defense attorney, it's kind of weird. His defense attorney was actually the prosecutor in both of these cases. Now that I think about it, and the first one is the murder of Shanda Shear. I don't know if you all know who she is. It's pretty brutal. She was a 14-year-old girl. Her mother was working for my uncle's lawyer as his assistant, and my mom met her, and my mom was struggling with her brother, having to deal with some serious charges and stuff, and kind of found some strength through the mother, Shanda, when she found out that was her daughter. But Shanda was a 14-year-old girl that essentially was in a lesbian relationship with an older girl or another girl, and 3 other girls all pretty much convinced her to go out with them. And it was kind of like a love triangle thing gone bad, and the girls ended up kidnapping her, doing a lot of awful things to her while she was still alive, beat her with a crowbar, threw her back in the trunk, and killed her. It's really gruesome and a really bad, awful story. Morbid did a podcast on it, so you got to check it out. It's really awful, but it's one of those ones that like you just can't fathom that people could do that type of thing, especially like these 15, 16, 17-year-old girls could do this to another girl they go to school with and stuff, you know. So it's pretty rough. But that one was one like just, man, that happened so close to my hometown, right? You know. And then the second one is David Cam. I don't know if you guys remember David Cam or not, but that was a state trooper who lived in the town next to my town, and his wife and 2 kids were found murdered while he was at a pickup basketball game. But his alibi was not necessarily super tight. People said that he was there for a little bit and left and then came back. And anyways, he was convicted of the murdering his wife and 2 kids. And he tried to force it off on another convicted felon that he had like run-ins to, this and that, and the guy's name was Charles Bonet. And Cam had said that I don't remember exactly how. Something about Bonet had a affinity for like stealing shoes or something, and the shoes were missing, and so like it looked like he was trying to frame Bonet for the murder. And it's like I think David Cam was in jail for 15 years or so, and they finally had overturned the case and charged just Bonet with the murder. There's a lot of people that still think that Cam had something to do with it, but it's kind of one of those things. Me personally, that was one of those things that when I was growing up, like it was on the news every night. It was, the biggest crime story, so we watched it and kept up with it. And everything that I knew about it and what I had read and stuff, I still probably think David Cam did it, but I can't say that he did or didn't. But it was funny that I was at a buddy's house one day and was talking to him and his wife, and they had a friend over, and we were all talking about stuff, and I had mentioned like, oh yeah, man, I don't remember, we were talking about like school and politics and debates and stuff, and I was like, yeah, man, when I was in 8th grade, like we had a cool 8th grade teacher that like encouraged us to debate on real life topics and this and that, and I was like, one of the coolest debates we had was David Cam. And I was like, you can't, like, that was just so cool. And, like, I almost spit out, like, you can't fucking tell me that he didn't murder his family, blah, 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 blah. Well, the girl was like, oh, yeah, what do you think he did? And my buddy was like, Slate, this is so-and-so Cam. David's her uncle.
Oh, God.
And I was like, oh. I was like, well, I mean, to me, I don't know all the facts, but everything that I had read and heard, I thought he did it. And she was like, that was the best way I could say it,
And she went, nuh-uh.
No, yeah, she
he like literally like Homer Simpson back into the bushes.
For real. She was like, well, he didn't, and here's everything from his side of the story that the news didn't tell, and blah, 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 blah. So,
oh, God.
but it was one of the most awkward moments of my life, because I'm looking over at my buddy Zach, and his eyes are real big, like, Slate, bro, you better just, hold tight here, man. And he was like, oh, this is,
put a hit out on you right
so
after
awkward.
that. Yeah, so, but yeah, he is now out of prison and acquitted of the charges, so, I guess he's innocent.
So she was right.
Maybe.
On this subject, just recently, for some reason, I almost actually sent this to you guys when I looked it up. It's been 2 or 3 weeks ago. Something we did or talked about got me thinking about my uncle. One of my uncles, I mean, all my family on my dad's side's been in run-ins and various legal troubles. But I knew growing up, my first encounter with someone who had been in prison was one of my dad's brothers, and he, as early, I mean, he was like, he didn't get it released from prison until I was in close to middle school, but I knew it was bank robbery is what but I'd never read about it. I never went so I just saw if I could find any old court documents online and spent like an hour one night reading through all the stuff, and not to belabor it or go into it in detail because it wasn't that exciting, but it was kind of funny like how it all came together and what like the trail that led to their demise. And too long didn't read, somebody who was involved with it just got greedy and was bragging about having robbed a bank, and that was sort of the way that they ended up getting
shut in Martin County,
and better. It wasn't my uncle, so at least he was smart. He was keeping his lips shut. So he died of a heart attack like 15 years ago. So R.I.P. Doyle.
Well, this one goes to you, Doyle. Yeah, so I may not be an expert on David Cam and that whole murder situation there, but I'm going to go ahead and throw out there, I am an expert on this subject today. I am now knighted as a ripperologist. Okay, guys?
Excellent.
Based off of this movie, based off of the, about 4 hours worth of documentaries I've watched, the 12 hours of podcasting that I've listened to, the reading of the book that this movie is based off of. I'm an expert. Ask me anything, I'll answer.
When's the degree coming?
It's in the mail. It takes a while to get across the pond,
I understand.
Can't just send, post owls like in Harry Potter. So,
well, you got to pay the tariffs too,
Yeah. Jeez, man, tariffs, I tell you. Getting into the movie, the reason why I asked this question is because the movie we're discussing today is one that, it covers, if not the biggest crime case ever, it's definitely it is definitely the biggest crime case in the history of London. So, but honestly, I don't know. I would say this and probably the Zodiac are probably the two biggest unsolved cases of all time. But today we're discussing the movie From Hell, and we will finally solve the mystery of who Jack the Ripper is. And, well, sort of. Meet me at the 10 Bells and let's get ready to bring birth to the 20th century, shall we?
Did they come to you, sir, as a loyal Mason? Did they ask you to help them cover up the prince's secret marriage?
That's how it started, yes.
And then you discovered the prince had syphilis.
He's going to die of it, Inspector. Would you like a tour of the syphilis wards?
The film that we're talking about today, From Hell, is one that I selected in the That Really Happened category, also known as the Dom Toretto is More Real Than Pearl Harbor category. And From Hell is the 2001 erotic thriller that chronicles the true life crimes of Jack the Ripper in the Whitechapel district of London in the year of 1888. The movie is based off the graphic novel written by the legendary comic book writer / graphic novelist Alan Moore. Alan Moore is most known for his writing of books that have inspired not only this movie, but other books such as The Watchmen, V for Vendetta, The Killing Joke, which is one of the best Batman one-shot stories of all time and sparked an animated movie that's also really good. And lastly, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen starring Sean Connery.
Which is probably the worst of these adaptations. I've not watched it in a long time, but it's the first one I remember seeing.
I remember it being real bad.
Yeah,
actually,
go ahead.
I like V for Vendetta.
I remember my memory of that is really unique because I watched it the night of the UK. I believe it was the same night, the night that UK beat Louisville. Is it the Stevie Got Loose game?
Okay, yeah.
I think it was that same night was the night I watched V for Vendetta for the first time. After watching that game with a family friends, so
That's
pretty
an epic night, bro.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Honestly, it was a pretty solid night.
I see. I think I'm. Watchmen came out before V for Vendetta, correct?
No, V for Vendetta was like 2003.
I think it was between. Yeah, I think it was after A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and before Watchmen. I believe.
Okay, so
yeah,
then
Watchmen
I definitely watched V for Vendetta before I watched Watchmen. Then, so
Watchmen's like 07 maybe.
I couldn't remember.
07, 08, that range. Okay. I mean, there are parts of Watchmen that I like, but it's a typical bloated.
It's a hard movie to.
Zack Snyder, yeah.
Well, and it's unfortunate, because I do think it's a really tough thing to adapt, and from what I recall, it wasn't adapted the best, but it probably, I'd still say it's probably Zack Snyder's second best movie.
Maybe.
Yeah. I will say, I've mentioned this before, but the HBO show, The Watchmen, which is just a limited, it's excellent. Would highly recommend, and it doesn't.
I'm curious how well that holds up to the graphic novel versus the movie.
Is it? It's more of an extension.
It's kind of an extension, but
which is probably the smart way to go.
In the movie, I haven't read the graphic novel. A guy gave it to me one time to read, and I never got around to it.
It's like probably the best comic ever.
I know. It's like I'll get to it one of these days. But understanding that, the alien threat that's supposed to bring the world together or whatever, and they don't do that in Zack Snyder's movie. I can't remember what he does instead. Is it like?
He
blows up
all over the screen.
He blows up something, or I can't remember exactly what kind of is the big turning point at the end. But they go for the crazy alien in the Watchmen show, and they do it so well. Sweet. It's not like silly or maybe what a movie executive would have thought was unadaptable, but they totally make it work in the show.
Starfish.
Starro.
That's a good thing.
I liked Starro.
Starro rocks.
Oh my god, no! It's like an angry Patrick Star just destroying the whole town. It's crazy.
It is terrifying.
That's great.
No. While we're on the subject, I think it's worth noting that Alan Moore has had absolutely 100% nothing to do with any of the movies inspired off of his graphic novels, which are inspired off of other things.
Respect.
So, he doesn't work with DC at all anymore. He had told DC he wanted to have his name removed from V for Vendetta, and they included him and then made a false quote about him being excited about the movie, and he was very defiant in saying that that's a complete fabrication, and I want nothing to do with DC ever again. So they soured that relationship, but Moore is he's an interesting fellow, to say the least. Definitely very, very talented. But as far as the movies go, his take on the movies has always been, if the movie's really good, great on them. If the movie's shit, it has nothing to do with me either way. Like, if they do great, awesome. They deserve all the credit. Please do not say anything about my project and my book making this movie good. They either made a good movie or they didn't, but each thing should stand on their own. And I respect that decision. I think that it would be nice for him to have some input in some of these films, because we wouldn't end up with some of the decisions that the Hughes brothers made in this movie, probably. But it is what it is, right? So we're going to definitely get into that and the differences that happen between the movie and the book in real life as well. But yeah, let's get back into this. So From Hell is directed by the Hughes brothers, Albert and Alan Hughes. At this time in 2001, they are, and honestly, still to this day, they were most known for directing Dead Presidents and Menace to Society. After this movie, they go on to make Book of Eli later down the road with Denzel also. But honestly, like, I want to know what the hell drew them to this movie. Like, the Hughes brothers have no business making this film. It is not their style at all. Like,
did you find anything that talked about that? Because I didn't. I mean, I didn't go diving too deep, but
every time I would YouTube, hey, Hughes Brothers interviews about From Hell, it was just Albert talking about how much he hated working with the politics over in Prague and how he hated Prague and was never going to go back to Prague. And he yet moved to Prague 3 years later. So
they got him.
Yeah, he still lives in Prague to this day. Other things, like when you bring up like Hughes Brothers From Hell, you bring up articles and stories where Johnny Depp is like, these dudes are getting in legit fistfights on set with each other. Like, the twin brothers are just going at it. And then, of course, they're, like, downplaying it, saying, hey, you know, yes, we get into fights, and yes, they get physical, but it's not nearly as bad as people think, and it's just how twins communicate. Back off. Like,
sure.
Okay.
So, I could not find where they were like, oh, we read the book and loved it, or oh, you know, somebody approached us and we thought this would be a different challenge, or like, I don't know why they picked this movie. I would love to have some truth serum, because honestly, other than, hey, here's a decent sized budget on a really big graphic novel, it's about a very polarizing figure in history with murder attached to it, you could probably make a lot of money and do a lot of sex scenes and stuff. And they're like, yeah, sure. You know what I mean?
And then
like,
they got it and decided, we're not going to do any of that.
But they do some of it, sort of. It is so weird. This movie is very raw and gory in a lot of ways, and then it's also very subliminal and like
tame,
posh, like tame. Yeah, tame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, hey, wait a minute, we're not gonna do that. You know, which is odd. I feel like, especially with the subject material, you have to be all in or not at all.
Some weird choices made right from the get-go in regards to that stuff, for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, like I said, it's when you guys see that first shot of London and when you're seeing all these streets, I don't know about you guys, but I thought they had built a lot. Like, I thought this was a set that they had built.
And it's not, right?
They filmed this all on location in Prague. They said that Prague at this time looked the most like the 1800s of, London. So that's what they decided.
I read a review on Letterboxd for this, and I can't remember if it was a positive or negative review, but they talked about the backgrounds and stuff looking like a painting almost. And I think that's some of that's getting, because where it's that lot kind of look, and it really does, like the way it's shot looks like and I mostly want to highlight the cinematography there for a minute, because it's Peter Deming is the cinematographer on this, who also did Mulholland Drive.
Oh wow, he had
this
a hell of a year.
And also he just goes back to, he's been in horror, for a long time. Evil Dead, I think Evil Dead 2 was his first thing. So, I mean, he's been involved, around Hollywood and horror for a really long time.
Yeah, and, the possibility of some of the backgrounds being painter-esque and stuff could very well be that, like, this specific corner looks like 1888 London, and right behind it does not.
It's a Starbucks.
It's the red light district. So they didn't have stripper poles back then. No. So yeah. But From Hell stars Johnny Depp as Inspector Frederick Aberline. Frederick Aberline. Sorry. An opium-addicted detective who's using his addiction to fuel his psychic senses, which allow him to see Jack the Ripper's murders before they happen. And these clues help him hunt down this killer. There is a lot of problems that I have with Aberline, and I'm going to save those for the reaction segment. Second star on this film is going to be Heather Graham. She's the co-host to Depp in this movie, or co-host, I'm sorry, co-star.
Co-host.
Host, star, whatever, Welcome on in. She's the co-star to Depp in this movie, and I must say, of course, she looks amazing with red hair. Absolutely amazing.
Who could have seen that coming?
Go figure. She plays Mary Kelly, aka Mary Jane Kelly, and there may be even more issues with her than Aberline, so hold that thought.
Unless you watch the version Josh watched.
Yeah. 3 times, too, apparently. which is wild, Josh. Okay. The rest of the victims of Jack the Ripper, also known as the Canonical Five, are as such. Katrin Cartledge plays Annie Chapman, who was known as Dark Annie when she would drink. Leslie Sharp is Kate Eddowes. Liz Stride is portrayed by Suzanne Lynch. And lastly, Annabelle Apsion is Mary Ann Nichols, also known as Polly Nichols. We'll refer to her as Polly so we don't get Mary Ann Nichols and Mary Jane Kelly mixed up. There are some issues with all of these characters as well. I'm starting to sense a trend here. But the movie does do a good job of balancing between Depp's character and his investigation and the lives that these women are living as they're being hunted by Jack the Ripper. Honestly, at times, the friend group of women feel more like the main characters than Inspector Aberline does. And his partner, Godley, who's played by our guy, Robbie Coltrane. Hello, Hagrid.
R.I.P.
Yeah, so...
To him and Ian Holm.
But yeah, Ian Holm too. Yeah, they really do focus a lot on the women, which I do appreciate, because it's very easy, especially in Hollywood and just in general, to say, oh, well, Jack the Ripper is known for murdering 5 prostitutes and they're just sex workers. And they do spend a lot of time with these women. They don't really get their stories anywhere close to right. Most of these women were married or seeing somebody in a serious relationship while working the streets, and they don't really pertain to any of that stuff. A lot of these women had children, as well. But they do enough time to make you care about the characters, which I at least appreciate there. But yeah, Godley and Aberline, they're, constantly being hindered by not only the conditions of Whitechapel in the year in the year 1888, and the people who inhabit it, but they're also being hindered by their superior, Sir Charles Warren, who's played by Ian Richardson. And if you guys haven't guessed yet, there's issues with him also. So, Warren assigns Aberline to the case, but he's constantly denying any request that Aberline has when asking for any kind of outside help. He also erases evidence, which is actually something that really happened in real life. And ultimately,
glad the police were on it back then as much as they are now.
Right. And ultimately, he's just a straight up asshole, or, since we're in England, we'll just call him a wanker.
He is such a piece of shit.
He really is.
Like,
he really is. And there's a lot going on with his character in the whole situation there that we'll get into when we start talking about the historical inaccuracies and really what happened. But Aberline believes that due to the precision of the removal of certain organs in the dark in a matter of mere minutes, that the killer must have somewhat of an anatomical or medical background, which seems logical, right? I mean, it makes sense, correct? Well, Sir Charles's theory, first of all, is maybe it's one of these red savage Indians, okay?
Yeah.
That's his first one.
He's talking about Buffalo Bill or something.
Yeah, it's Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. No way it could be a proper Englishman. He would never. And then the second one is, it must be somebody with money. It must be a Jew or a butcher. Even better, a Jew butcher. That's the theory we're going to run with.
Damn.
Surely this man is a madman at that, too, from outside the country. And Aberline asks Sir Charles, he's like, you know what? We might want to keep those theories
Let's not
away.
speculate wildly.
Yeah, we don't want the papers to get a hold of those theories and really, cause chaos.
Or we'd hate to lose our leads.
Right. Which ultimately does happen. The papers start running with all these different theories, and they barely touch on it, but they're closing up all the Jewish shops because people are pretty much hunting down all the Jews. Because they think it's a Jew at first, and then they think it's a guy named Leather Apron. And when Leather Apron tries to turn himself in, instead he goes on the run, and they're like, well, why did you run from us if you're not Jack the Ripper? And he's like, well, because if the public had caught me, they'd have hung me before you ever got me to jail. Fair enough. Okay. You know what? That makes sense. So yeah. Sorry. But Aberline asked Charles to keep his theories away from the paper. Then he asked for permission to speak with a doctor for help on this case. And Charles says, yeah, essentially, the morgue doctor that you've got, he should do just a bang-up job. Well, that guy hates his job, can't stomach the sight of the victims without losing his lunch, and, should be more than enough. Yeah, he should be more than enough of a medical expert to help, and yet he can't even notice when Jack the Ripper has taken organs out. So that's where we're.
He says something like, "I already looked at it once. I'm not going to look at it again."
He said, "I looked at the mess twice. I'm not doing it again." Yeah, you look at it. Which, again, the actual doctor that's inspecting these crimes was not like this at all. They actually took him off the case for the last murder for Mary Jane Kelly, and he was fighting tooth and nail and gave his own opinion of it, and the new assigned doctor's opinion was completely opposite of his. Lo and behold, imagine that. So, but yeah, so Aberline decides, well, you're not going to let me seek outside consultancy, but I'm going to do it anyways. And somehow he ends up in the lap of Sir William Gull, who is the personal medical physician assigned to the royal family. Oh yes, there's massive issues here. Imagine that. Okay. And then at this point, you have essentially a Hannibal Lecter, Will Graham, Clarice Starling type situation that ensues.
Just out of nowhere, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, right? Like, that's pretty, but then is it?
That's what they're going for.
Isn't the last hour of this movie the beginning of Red Dragon? And
yeah, that might be part of why I don't love this movie.
So, but yeah, I do really want to highlight what really happened to these victims and the difference between the actual crimes and the differences between them and the book and the difference between the book and the movie as well. And I feel like most of that's going to come easily as we discuss this movie through our reactions. I know that this was my longest intro to a movie this year, but I felt like there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be laid for this movie. So, thanks for bearing with me. And what did you guys think about From Hell?
I want to start just because I'm going to preface this with some context for my watching of this movie.
Okay.
That I just got back from vacation from the beach, and we were flying out of Panama City Beach.
Oh yeah,
leaving at 7 p.m. That was which we had to go to Charlotte, and then leave out of Charlotte at like 9:45 or whatever. And which, by the way, 7 p.m. is 8 p.m. our time because it was 7 p.m. Eastern. Long story short, our flight to get out of that airport kept getting delayed, and it got to the point where we were definitely missing our Charlotte connection. We're gonna have to spend the night there. But then kept getting delayed. It didn't take off until 3 a.m, actually 4 a.m. Eastern time. So we just didn't go to bed. And at one point when I was like, well, I guess I'll just lay here in the airport floor and watch From Hell on my iPad.
We have visual proof.
And I had made John take a picture of me, and I'm just like, I'm dedicated to this podcast.
And that was really hard for an imaginary friend to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I was up for 26 straight hours, I think, and I was a little bit out of my mind in the middle of the night watching this movie.
So you were living about as, an awful existence as most people in Whitechapel in 18.
Well, you were on your own Aberline kind of mindset.
No one cut out any organs while I slept. So
you should have chased the dragon a little bit there, Alice.
John did have 8 bourbons over the course of.
Okay, he
just kept going up to the bar. Every time they delayed it in a few hours, he'd go up to the bar and order a double. And I'm like,
and he never paid for a single one, Josh. So what did you think about the movie, though, with your viewing experience being on the floor of an airport.
You know what? I like this movie more than I thought I would. I think there's a lot of problems with it, and I think the ending kind of falls off a cliff. But I was a little surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did, given, Heather Graham's poor lack of an accent and stuff. But it reminded me of, one, I think the movie looks pretty beautiful for the most part visually. I thought it was, I don't know, kind of rich and dark, and I kind of like the look of it when you mentioned the cinematographer. And it also reminded me of, like, remember when Johnny Depp used to do, like, interesting stuff?
Yeah.
And not just Pirates of the Caribbean sequels or Dior perfume or cologne, whatever he's doing. So whatever cologne commercial he's in. But yeah, the Johnny Depp of that era was definitely a Johnny Depp I was interested in. And it reminded me a little bit of Sleepy Hollow. Not quite as supernatural or, cold, I guess, as Sleepy Hollow, but period piece. He's got an accent. He looks great. But yeah.
I'd mentioned this to you guys earlier when I watched this. I thought I'd seen this before watching it for this podcast, but no, I hadn't. I was thinking of Sleepy Hollow, which in my opinion is a much better movie. I didn't hate this movie, but it is something. I think it's worse than the sum of its parts, I guess is the way I would describe it, because I think I actually really love the atmosphere of it. I think they really do a good job of putting you in that setting and making it feel like this, Victorian England, situation, and it all feels pretty authentic to that time, at least what we think of it. I think the performances are all pretty good. Varying accents aside, I do think it's a pretty well acted movie, and it's not a crazy amount of characters, even though there are a lot of people who, by the nature of this story, you do have a lot of people who have to die, and are going to die. So I actually don't think you do spend a lot of time with those women. I don't think any of them are really that great of characters, but I don't think I'm not sure anybody in this movie is really necessarily a great character, and that's maybe part of my biggest why it probably doesn't gel together for me as much as I just don't think the story is very interesting. It seems the stuff that should be there and the actual events of this incident and these events that happened should be way more engaging than it all feels in this movie. And I get that this is adapting a comic book, which is adapting it's a retelling or a imaginative, historical fiction type thing. So it's not like the faithfulness to what happened isn't what bothers me. I don't care about that, but it's just, I don't think they do enough with the parts to make it interesting to me. I have a hard, and especially by the end.
It's a 2 hour and 20-minute long movie almost.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think it's about 2 hours, but
yeah, about 2 hours.
As I hadn't read the graphic novel. I have literally no background in this movie aside from generally knowing the Jack the Ripper story, and to me, I'm like, they're throwing in some supernatural stuff that they don't really.
I don't understand why this dude has to be a psychic, or
why does Johnny Depp have to have psychic opium induced dreams?
It's right from the get go.
Why does Ian Holmes' eyes turn black like he's the devil?
He's the devil himself.
Yeah.
Okay, so man, first let's start with this movie starts with the quote not from Plato.
I did notice that.
Okay. It starts with the quote from Jack the Ripper, which is total bullshit and total nonsense because in all of the Jack the Ripper notes and letters, it's never quoted. They never caught Jack the Ripper.
Was it not in the book? Okay, that's why that was my question.
It's not even in the book. Okay, they just completely said, this sounds cool. We're going to make Jack the Ripper say it when he's caught red-handed, and we're also going to start the movie with it. When he says, one day men will look back and say, I brought birth to the 20th century. Sounds like an awesome thing for a wicked villain to say, but yeah. It's not in any of the Jack the Ripper letters. It's not a real thing at all. It's not even in the book. So they're letting you know immediately, forget whatever you think this is going to be. This is our fucking movie, guys. Okay? Secondly, the book does have a psychic in it, but it is not Aberline. It is a different character. His name is, I believe it's Mr. Lees is his name in the book. And
so they kind of like combine two characters essentially.
Yeah, and essentially, yeah. So what the book does in real life, what the book does is it takes a lot of different theories and a lot of different evidence for multiple people that police may have believed were the killer but couldn't prove it, or multiple motivations for why somebody would be killing these women, and all these different theories behind the rituals of the deaths and the progressions of the deaths and how these happen. And they've taken all these and turned them into one person to fit this main narrative that they're looking for, and that's what they did in the book. In the movie, they do the same thing, but with everything in the book. It's all just generally encompassed into, so yes, Mr. Lees is not at all in this movie at all. Instead, they tie him to make him Frederick Aberline. In the book, he's in it, but he's not like super in it. And a lot of times Aberline's like, dude, go away. I don't want nothing to do with your crockpot shit, about who this killer is. Like, I don't want to hear nothing. And Lee's basically like barges him down one day and is like, you need to listen to me. I'm telling you. And he essentially like takes him to William Gull's house and is like, I don't know who lives here, but Jack the Ripper lives here. And so they like knock on the door and the wife is like, can I help you? And he was like, yes, ma'am, we just need to speak with your husband about, a case that we're working on or whatever. And then it's Sir William Gull and Aberline's like, sorry, this guy's having like psychic vision. He thinks that like you're Jack the Ripper. And William Gull's like, I am. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, that's me. I did it. It's pretty wild. So, but yeah, the Aberline in real life did not have psychic visions, was not an opium addict, did not drink at all, was married, and was faithful to his wife from the time that they were first married, like 40 years before these murders happened, till he died. So, like, just the character himself is completely different. He was also an older inspector and like a short, fat, portly man, not this handsome. I believe
not Johnny Depp.
Peak Johnny Depp. Yeah.
I believe Alan Moore says he's got a haircut that would have gotten his ass beat up by everybody who worked in the police force at the time. So, but yeah, some other things that what do you guys think about the murders and the way they approach them? The first one's like very quick, sharp flash of the night. You hear the sound effects.
That's probably my favorite one. Just because it's I do think it's interesting how they kind of conceal the violence. Well, I'll say this. I don't think that was a wise decision, because I think part of doing this story is kind of forcing you to
that's like
reckon with
why
that.
Why are we doing a rated R movie if we are not going to like live up to the violence of this tale? And I'm not normally one to be like more violence against women.
No,
but
but honestly,
because that's what Moore's trying to do with this book a little bit, is like kind of using that as from what I've read about it. I've not read the book, but like it seems like he was trying to really put that on the page
It is very graphic.
To kind of make you have to sit with it while you're engaging with this like kind of thing that people are obsessed with, which is kind of like
it puts the graphic in graphic novel. I will say that. There are definitely things in that book that you can't really necessarily unsee. But they do it as tastefully, I guess, as you can in what's somewhat a smut book. It's like, but they they still do it with a delicacy and a grittiness at the same time, which is really cool, and what I appreciate about the book. But I do have issues with the murders in the movie, because what they're missing with Jack the Ripper, and what really hits home about Jack the Ripper, is like one of the murders is a woman who is walking Whitechapel. The police are aware of this situation now, and they're walking their beats constantly. And there is a detective or a beat officer that his whole loop takes him 15 minutes to walk. There's not a woman there when he starts that loop. When he gets back 15 minutes later, she's dead and disemboweled. Okay? And she's laying there in the middle of the street. That's how quickly this guy's working in the dark. And in the movie, a lot of times, she's being murdered in a carriage and then put somewhere. That's not what happened, bro. Like, that didn't happen. He didn't take his time in a carriage and do that stuff.
Or like pulled back in an alley where people aren't gonna. Where you're concealed. And...
Yeah. Now, I mean, one of the murders takes place in a backyard. Like, that you have to go down a dark alley, and it's a backyard that a lot of women at that time would use to make their business transactions, and that was like a well-known area there, so it is like darker and stuff. But that's the other thing too. The woman that was murdered, the craziness about this whole thing is how wild Whitechapel was. The moment, like, okay, the last victim, Mary Jane Kelly, had multiple people woke up in the middle of the night and heard her yell, "Oh, murder," and they went back to sleep because they're like, that's pretty normal. Like, I just thought it was, I only heard it once, so I didn't think anything.
That's why if you're ever in trouble, you're supposed to yell fire and not help someone, not anything else that where people are.
People.
You have to do something where people think, "Oh, this may affect me. I will call for help."
Yeah. But the lady that is murdered in the backyard, and they're all like, "Oh, let us see," and Robbie Coltrane is sitting there like, "Oh, there goes your typical Lunder, bridled with the spirit of Christ for their fellow man," I
did love him in this movie.
He's great in this movie.
Yeah.
He's great.
But that murder, in real life, what happened, there was a man who woke up in the middle of the night, and went out to use the bathroom outside, and his fence was the next door house to the fence that the lady was murdered in. And he had said that he had heard something that it was like a no or stop, and it sounded like a lady in distress, and then didn't hear anything else. And he was walking by the fence, and he heard a thud against the fence, and didn't hear anything else, and walked away. And he literally heard her body hitting the fence as she was
He's
murdered.
like, "I'm sure it's fine."
It's just craziness how, and at 4:30 in the morning in Whitechapel, like, just people are being murdered right next door to you, and you don't suspect it, because it's just like, oh, it's just whatever around here. It's always something weird and stupid, and
do you know the story of Kitty Genovese? Have you ever heard that?
Is that the lady that they start with Boondock Saints in the beginning, where she's being like murdered in the street and nobody helped her?
I haven't seen Boondock Saints, but yes, that's basically, she was stabbed like 37 times or something and was crying out for help, and there were people in apartments all around, and no one came out to stop it.
Yeah. But another thing that our guy Godley says in the movie is, before he cut her throat, he removed her livelihood, talking about essentially Jack the Ripper is removing the female organs, the uterus, the vagina, all of that. He's removing kidneys and livers at certain points, and the reason why people believe he needs a medical background is because some of the things that he's clipping here, if you clip the wrong thing, is going to create a gigantic mess, a lot of fecal sewage and things like that, and it's just not good. And he's clipping them cleanly in the dark. He knows where these pieces are. They're not easy things to get to and stuff. But when he says that he cut her throat, before he cut her throat, he removed her livelihood, that is not true either. Their throats are slit, and after they're dead, that's when he's removing the organs. And some people are saying that they believe he actually is strangled. There's only one woman that showed that she had been strangled, but most people still believe that most of the women are being strangled or choked, and he's essentially breaking their windpipe before he slits their throat so that they can't scream. So another thing that's in the movie and also in the book that is different than real life is that he's luring these women in with grapes. There were no grapes found at the scene of any of these murders.
And now they wouldn't want to take the grapes because they might get explosive diarrhea from Cyclospora.
But yeah, in the book, he's using grapes as well. That's just, I guess, a theory or something that Alan Moore came up with to make Jack, fit this more elegant man and to get them to trust him. In the movie as well, and in the book, these women are all really close friends. They all know each other. And it's true. They probably knew each other. They're all in a small setting in Whitechapel. It's not very big. But there's no proof that they were, and of course they're all working the same shifts in corners of the night in different lots and everything. So they definitely probably ran across each other. But there's no proof or evidence that this was a tight-knit group of friends that were even working together or, knew each other in that kind of manner. One of the other things, did you guys notice in the movie when they're all like tied to the rope and they just fall over? Do you all know what that is?
It's like a sleeping. I don't remember what's. It's like it was a thing though. Right?
Yes.
It was like you had to pay. Like
so,
it was like a.
So
there was
this
so much
is where the
homelessness
term
or whatever.
hangover comes from. It is what they called It's what they called the 2-penny hangover. So most of these women are basically working the streets to make money just to feed their bellies and to have a place to sleep at night. They're working in workhouses, and it's really, really, really hard labor, and you have a place to sleep, but it's essentially like working as a prisoner, and the bed conditions aren't great. So then they, they'll work in a workhouse for a couple weeks or a month or two, and then they're like, I can't do this anymore. And then they go back to the streets, and then they work at they go to live at these DOS houses. But the thing about a DOS house is essentially you pay, your 4 pence a night to stay there. And when the sun's up at 7 o'clock in the morning, get everything you have out of that fucking room and don't come back until you have your 4 pence again. And so a lot of these women are murdered while wearing every piece of clothing that they have on them. And, so that's the situation that we're dealing with here. Is that so the 2-penny hangover is an alternative. There are other places where you can, 1 penny, you can stand up against a wall, but you cannot fall asleep. That's how you rest for the night.
Like a horse.
Yes. And then the 2-penny hangover is they tie you essentially to a beam, and you're not allowed to lean up against the beam. You have to lean and hang over this rope that is tied to you and 7 other strangers that you all paid 2 pennies just to rest. And then they just let the rope go, and there you go. You wake up in the morning. So that's the 2-penny hangover, which is essentially where the word hangover came from. Let's get into Mary Jane Kelly a little bit. She is the most iconic victim of Jack the Ripper. And one of my main problems with this movie, and not apparently the version that Josh saw, is that in this movie they pull a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and they change the course of history, and Mary Jane Kelly lives to see another day, and she moves off to Ireland and lives happily ever after and doesn't die. They actually
presumably adopts the poor baby that is now an orphan.
She adopts Anne Crook and Prince Albert's baby, she lives happily ever after in Ireland. And Josh said.
So in my version, I clearly wasn't paying well enough attention to this movie. So my background on how I watched this movie, I was just really bored to tears by the final 30 minutes or 45 minutes of this movie. I was pretty into it. I think the biggest thing for me, I don't care about the historical accuracy, that stuff. I don't care. But I was just not invested in the story by the point back where things started to come to a climax. I was just kind of did not care. It's because and I don't know if it was because the mystery was kind of thin, or if it was because I just didn't.
That's what I sorry. Keep going.
No, you're good. I don't think even though I thought his performance was fine, I don't know that, because the movie centers Johnny Depp's character is sort of the guy that you're really supposed to be kind of.
In Sinners?
No,
the movie Centers. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, where did that come from? Okay.
And I just don't. I don't know. I'm just not. And I think it's because they kind of set him up right from the get go to not make any sense with the psychedelic thing. Just doesn't really add anything. So. There's nothing coming together for me by the end. And so my version, though, I just clearly wasn't paying well enough attention. I fell asleep a few times trying to watch this, and so I would resume it at the same part, and I guess I was just finally whatever, it's just on, and I didn't hear correctly what had happened with that letter, and how and observed that they had switched the women, and it was. So my version in my head, it was just a dream. I was literally had created a whole different version of this ending as I was watching it, apparently, because maybe I was doing drugs. I don't know. It was I thought it was Johnny Depp's character is kind of in a coma, or he's dead at the end, and so I just thought, he's seeing this woman, this idyllic life,
the life he should have had.
Which honestly, I think might be a better ending.
So basically, Josh thought that Mary Kelly had been murdered, and he's like, "Oh wow, I can't believe they murdered her." And Slate and I are like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dude?"
Well, because I was reading Slate's
She
notes,
lives.
and I was like, "Was I high? Was I?"
Yeah, Josh screenshotted my notes where I was like, "Yeah, they pulled Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and she's still alive." And Josh was like, "Did we watch the same movie? What are you?"
No, but Josh, to kind of add on to your thoughts about the ending, I kind of, that's where I think it really fell off the cliff for me, because the entire time I was like, Ian Holmes, the guy. It seemed pretty obvious. I know they tried to make that young surgeon dude your main, he's the one who did it, but they were so over the top with him, but I'm like, it's obvious that he's not, and I'm like, but it seems pretty obvious to me that Ian Holm is involved in this. That I kept expecting maybe at the end that they'll go with a different twist. It was weirdly a letdown, I guess, when he just kind of immediately admits it.
Yeah, and I think,
and I'm like,
okay. Hey, in the book he does too. They got that part right.
Well,
and I think the way you described it in the book though is almost more funny. There's it's kind of the way that encounter, the way, because the way it happens in the movie is just so.
It's a big aha moment, and he's like, yeah, so what?
Yeah, I think it's partly the character isn't. It kind of gets back to the whole thing what I was saying. I don't know that any of the characters are served well. I kind of just think he's sort of window dressing until he doesn't need to be, in a way. And I feel like a lot of the characters in this movie are kind of that.
It's going back to what you both said about the end of the movie. While the end of the movie and the end of the book are quite different, this movie pretty much ends with, all right, yep, Johnny Depp's figured out who the killer is, but he can't do anything about it. But, the Freemasons are going to take care of it, and that's the end of it. And, now he's going to die, and he's going to, William Gull's going to end up getting lobotomized, and all right, cool, that's it. That's the end of the movie. Well, pretty much there's 2 full chapters kind of after all that in the book, and it is a slugfest of just, you want to talk about being drained. It was the first time I skimmed through pages in the entire novel where I was like, all right, like I don't need to read the rest of this part. It doesn't, so there's like a good 30 pages of dialogue that Sir William Gull is going through as he's hallucinating before he ascends to his death, mentally. And it's incoherence. I mean, I don't know. I don't, but, so it does kind of, the end of the book is like the end of the movie where it loses you a little bit. So.
Well, and I wasn't totally sure and again, keep in mind, I'm probably missing stuff because I'm watching this in the middle of the night in the floor of an airport, but I'm like,
that's the best way to experience this movie.
Gull's motivation, aside from like, okay, he's in the Freemasons. Did they pay him to do this? Is he just doing it as a favor? Is he just doing it because like he wants to protect the royal family? Because I'm like, he seems to take such pleasure in it that I'm like, I can't imagine that like he would go to like all this trouble just as like, yeah, I'll take care of all these like sex workers for you, no big deal. But then, like I said, his eyes turn black at that one point, and then I think is it when he murders the final girl, which turns out not to be like, it's almost like a light appears and he looks like he's experiencing some kind of euphoria or moment. He's transcending, or I'm like, okay.
So yes, Sir William Gull is a Freemason in the book and in the movie. And again, pertaining to the Jews, a lot of people are assuming Jewish people. The evidence that is wiped off the wall that says the Jews will not be the men not blamed for nothing is basically saying, yes, a Jewish man did this, right? But it is spelled Juwes. And Sir Charles Warren has them erase that off and is like, I know Jewish hate when I see it. I don't care if it's misspelled. Well, actually, those Jews are 3 different names that all have the word Jew in them in the Freemasons' Bible, or whatever you want to call it, their manifesto. And what it's based off of is they end up murdering, I don't remember exactly who it is, but they murder an prominent figure, and they slit his throat, cut his intestines out, and loop them around over his shoulder, which is how most of these women are also found. And so really what Sir William Gull wrote on there, or whoever, Jack the Ripper, because that's a real thing that was written on the wall that was erased, is saying, has a theory that it pertains to Freemasonry, okay? So, in the book, they spend a good, literally 35 pages of the smallest, sloppiest writing of an entire tour where William Gull, before he hires Netley to be his driver, he has Netley drive him around the entire city of London, and they're going through all of these different churches and monasteries and prominent buildings and monuments and statues and all of these things. It's like a prehistoric tour of everything that Europe has that has anything to do with any kind of religion or Freemason beliefs or any kind of like spiritual background and architecture and the history of all of that, and why it's the most boring chapter I've ever read in an entire book. But like Alan Moore definitely decided that like this is what you need to know that fuels his belief in Freemasonry and how this all intertwines or whatever. But essentially in the book, yes, the royal family comes to William Gull and says, hey, we have a problem. The prince has married an unfortunate and had a baby with her. And we cannot allow this. We will not allow this. And I want them taken care of. And sure, no problem. We'll take care of them. And he tells Netley, hey, if you help me with this, I can help you become a Freemason. I know you want to become a Freemason. Help me with this grand work, and we will accept you into the Freemasonries. And so that's what they're doing. Which, at the beginning of this movie, your other detective that's ahead of Sir Charles Warren kind of comes up behind Netley and says, we're reviewing your case. If you're going to have a guy that you need to take care of, make sure that, and he's talking about essentially that. But they make it seem more like it's, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to go to jail type thing. But in the book, essentially, yeah, he's supposed to kill these women and just kind of clean, sleep it, get rid of them, no problem. He goes way above and beyond what they ever expected or wanted him to do. And they're like, all right, well, the dog's out of the cage now, but like we can't really reel him in until this is done. But like once he's done, he's got to pay for these heinous crimes. Like we've got to deal with the cover up, and then we'll essentially fake his death and then put him in a madhouse, give him a lobotomy until he dies. Like, because like we can't. So that's what happened is they wanted him to do it, and then he went way beyond what they ever asked him to do.
He was an overachiever.
Yeah. To say the least. I mean,
that was also part of the ending that, like in your notes here, you're like, he was sort of caught and punished, but like I took that all as like, with the context of Aberline, like, no, you did this to him just to cover it up. This is not fair. This is not justice.
True.
And like, okay, you think that you've wrapped this all up in a bow and everybody's gotten what they want, but like it is not cool.
Yeah. So okay, I want to go back to Mary Jane Kelly for a minute because obviously, like I said, they do the body switch here, right? And instead, it's the woman that's like in the room with her, and Mary Jane Kelly leaves, and she's the one that gets murdered. The glimpses, like the brief glimpses of the body that they use in the movie, are pretty accurate.
That photo is pretty wild.
I was gonna ask. I didn't know if you guys had seen it. Allison, have you seen the photo of Mary Jane Kelly's body in real life? It's something you'll never unsee.
It's pretty insane that like it's an incredible photo. Like it's just like if you can get past like how awful it is. Like it's pretty a good illustration of where technology was at the time.
Yeah. So Mary Jane Kelly is the one victim that Jack pretty much had as much time to do as he wanted with, and he did a lot. He brutally murdered her, disfigured her. Literally, the only thing that was pretty much left of her that was in place still were her eyes. They found, her intestines on the nightstand next to her. He had cut off her breast and placed them under her head as a pillow. He had peeled the skin all the way off of her legs down and bent her knees up at an angle. Broke her arm to where he almost had ripped it off, but then also like flipped it into like a 90-degree angle inside the cavity of her chest where she had been completely eviscerated. It's awful. If you want to see it, it is available to Google.
It's on Wikipedia, I think.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, there's like a safe search or like this may contain explicit before, but
is that not like the most wild thing you've ever seen? It's hard to fathom that it's real.
I just can't believe that it even exists, like the photo. Like it just seems...
I can't even tell what's what because it's you
so
know you
bad.
can recognize
it's
yeah.
You know it's a human. That's kind of the...
Yeah. This puts like the Dahmer pictures to shame, honestly. It's wild, but the body that they use in the movie, like the glimpses that you get of it, is pretty historically accurate to the photo. Like if you go back and rewatch the movie, Allison, like they're kind of showing flashes of it in the background and stuff. It's positioned and pretty accurate to it. But I did want to kind of get your all's thoughts. Like, how do you all feel that in this movie that they've pulled the old switcheroo and it's not Mary Kelly? Does that bother you at all?
That doesn't bother me because, like, I literally thought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's like, okay, they've done a revisionist history. What I did find interesting / odd is like, okay, you're going to give her a happy ending. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I thought Aberline was going to like overdose and be presumed dead.
And then wake
Or
up and
like,
go to her.
maybe he did it intentionally to get off everyone's radar, because he says, I can't go to her because they'll find her.
But this is like
But
15 years later. He's got gray in his hair at this point.
Still, but I'm like, oh no, he did. He actually did. I'm like, okay. Okay, Josh, you've turned into a robot.
Are you filming underwater now?
And he's gone.
We lost it. Okay. That's fine. We can hold that thought for him until he comes back. A couple other things that I wanted to say. One of them I'll say till he comes back. But they're really weird with the time in this movie too. So Allison, did you know like when these women were murdered, they didn't like leave their bodies in the street for like hours. Most of these bodies were picked up like between 15 to 45 minutes after they're discovered and moved to the morgue immediately, and they're washing the blood off the street instantly. And most of these women are found within like 30 minutes of their throats being slit as well. So like the scene in the movie where like the woman's laying there and then the detective or the police officer finds her and then it's like daylight until
you kind of see like there's a passage of time that she's been laying there the whole time.
Did not happen. That's just another one of those things that just didn't happen. But I do
I would have assumed that maybe they did that to kind of help indicate how little other people cared about these women. Like, no one's going to notice that they're missing, or maybe people did see them and didn't bother to.
I mean him saying nobody cares if a horde can't see?
Yeah.
Doesn't bother? But one of the other things that that I wanted to talk about that you said it didn't bother you that they had it's kind of like a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They're trying to give her a happy ending, obviously, like, but they don't. So then you're like, why did you do it, right? But for me is like, for a lot of people that don't know much about Jack the Ripper and these women and everything, they're gonna take this movie and take it as like, well, this is probably the most likely thing that happened, and it's not, and like I have a problem with it because I think it cheapens the story of Mary Jane Kelly, and I don't think it's fair to her memory the way that like with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we were all like surprised that Tarantino pulled that off, but we were like, you know what? I respect that, and that's cool, and we know that's not what happened. But Jack the Ripper is so far in history that, like, if you're not diving into it, you just take this movie for what it is, and you're like, I'm sure it's not all historically accurate.
See, that's the point Justin and I were trying to make about Pearl Harbor a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that, like, okay, I know it's just supposed to be a dumb popcorn movie, but, like, this will be some people's only, and if you're showing this in history class, then that's, like, what are you even doing?
Right. So, Josh, go back to what you were saying. Did you have a problem that they pulled the old switcheroo? Because I do. I don't love it.
Again, I'm fine with the taking liberties of it because as we kind of talked about on Pearl Harbor. Now, I did come around kind of thinking like, oh, yeah, like it's probably a bad thing that it it takes the liberties it does. But I don't know. I don't think anyone. I have a hard time thinking people. If you're showing this in like a history class, like you've got bigger problems than the fact that like what the fuck are you doing, teach? I do think. I guess my problem with it is less that they do it from the historically accuracy, and it's more like what does it achieve? Because okay, she gets a good ending, like that's nice. Because after Johnny Depp's character is the character you probably care about the most by the end in terms of. Actually, I think Robbie Coltrane's character is probably the character I cared about the most because he was the most interesting dude in the whole movie, or consistently.
And he's sad at the end.
Yeah.
He puts the coins.
Yeah, his buddies they do the callback.
Yeah.
That's probably the most heartfelt scene in the whole movie. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then that's my other. It's like, why I don't really care that she had her happy ending is I don't. like they try to make that love story like that becomes like a centerpiece of why. Do they even kiss?
Yes,
they kiss once,
they
right?
kiss
Yeah,
in
so
the alleyway, and the police officer stops.
that's
them
right. Yeah, and they come up and yeah,
at least in the
and
version.
he's like,
I
"Oh,
saw.
sorry." Yeah. No, I recall it was in my version. But it doesn't. I don't know. That relationship doesn't really manifest in a way that gets me, really heartbroken over anything.
Yeah, I agree with
maybe
that.
I'm just heartless. I don't know. I feel like it was just by the end. I really didn't care what was happening to anybody, and that's. I don't think that's the fault of the performers. I don't think it was. It's not even I think the material is there, and I think it's a really, even if you're taking a lot of liberties with it, I think there's a good story that you can do with all this, and it just didn't gel for me to make it to where, and I love the environment. I think they really do a good job with that stuff. So yeah, to answer the question, because I've been very long-winded, I guess I don't care that they do the swap, but if you're looking at it from the historical lens and just, maybe it is more interesting if she dies too, and maybe it, again, maybe the ending works better. I don't know.
Are they trying to go for like a bittersweet ending? Because if she died, and then if Johnny Depp's character,
it's like
dies,
they do a role reversal. Like in real life,
yeah,
she dies and he lives, and then in the movie, he dies and she lives, and it's odd because I think honestly, like, she's the character you kind of like the most in the movie, maybe besides from Godly. But like, out of all the women, you like her, right?
Oh yeah, for
you're
sure.
Rooting for her to get away, and like, honestly, her living cheapens Depp's reaction when she's dead. When he finds out that she's dead, it kind of cheapens that and takes that away from you as well. It also takes away, like I said, the memory of Mary Jane Kelly, because we've grown fond of her through this movie. That like, we should feel the impact that maybe others who actually knew her felt in missing her, and we don't feel that because in our world she's just off and doing her own thing. And then of course, like Allison said, you make her live to have this happy ending, but she doesn't really get the happy ending because she doesn't ever live with that.
Her man's still dead.
Yeah. So it's
Well, and I think it also gets at, it's a cheap way to get into this thing that the movie, it's there, it's present, but it's not really trying to grapple with it, which is like the whole class politics of everything that's kind of informing everything happening here. Like there's a Freemasonry angle, there's the royal angle, like the unfortunates are all like, the women are at the center of it, but there's like clearly this whole big underbelly that is like a really big dominant part of this society, and these people have to live this way that is clearly undesirable way to live, and unfortunate.
Perhaps.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and so it's also an easy way to give yourself like, well, she got out, she got to have this happy thing, and but don't think about all the other people that are still back there living in squalor, and and I wouldn't care about that so much if the movie tried to. It's not trying to be like overtly super political, and it's not trying to grapple with that. But like, then at the end, it's like, oh, happy. Here's a happy thing, like, it's like, it doesn't work for me because you didn't really care about trying to talk about that at all until really even then at that point, you're not really.
Do you think they tried to make it happy because it's such a bleak movie too that they're like, all right, we got to have at least one symbolism of.
It does seem like a studio, almost like a studio suggestion.
Yeah. So in the book, Aberline and Mary Kelly have a friendship relationship type thing, in the sense that she's not aware that Aberline is a detective, and he's giving her this false story about what he does, and he's just kind of not asking her about the case or anything. It's more of like, I've had a long night, you've had a long night, let me buy you a beer, and let's just talk like old friends. And that's kind of the relationship that they have. And like towards the end, she's aware that he's married, and she doesn't know his last name. She just calls him Fred, and he calls her Mary or whatever. And he gives her some money to help her. He really does want to help her, so he like gives her some money to give her a place to stay and stuff. and everything. And she's like, oh, Fred, like, you've never wanted anything back from me, like, in return for all your kindness. Like, you're the only man that's ever been a friend that's never wanted to have sex with me, and that type of, like, friendship. And she was like, if you weren't married, I'd kiss you, or whatever type thing. And that's kind of how it goes. And then, of course, she dies. And in the book, it's hinted at that she's still alive, that there's a couple people that cited seeing her after her death, and he's like, no, that can't be, right? And then there's apparently a letter that was left for him at the bar, but I don't think he ever gets the letter or reads the letter, and there's no, like, full yes, she's alive, or no, she isn't in the books. It's kind of left to interpretation of whatever ending you choose for that story between the two of them. So yeah. But one other thing about Mary Jane Kelly and her murder and the finding of her murder, is that, so Sir Charles Warren sends in in real life, in the movie, Sir Charles Warren is there, and Aberline's like, I want him, like, I know who it is, let me have him, he needs to pay for this. And he was like, he will, be smart, people are watching you, let us take care of it, he's done, there will be no more murders, like, let it go, right? Well, in real life, Sir Charles Warren actually put in his resignation the day before Mary Kelly's body is found. When they find her body, it's through the glass window on the outside, somebody's peeking in, and they call the police, and the police are like, we shouldn't go anywhere near this crime scene until Sir Charles Warren gets here. It's like 6 hours later before they're like, well, I guess he's not coming. And they finally go in the room, because word had not got out that he had resigned yet. And so that crime scene's just sitting there for 6 hours after her body's found before they even walk in the room and start to investigate. They did say that they could not believe how hot the fire still was. They don't know what he put in the fire, but when they walked in the room, the fire was like scalding hot. In the book and in the movie, they try to say, well, it must be the heart. He put the heart in there, and that's what makes the fire and the bright light and all of that. But it's just, it baffles me that the handling of the entire study of this whole case by the police is just awful. The assistant, like, head of the entire police of all of London was on holiday for 3 months while these murders are going on, because he was
because he was doing them.
Because he was like in Switzerland, because his doctor ordered it because he was under so much stress before the murders ever happened. He was like, if you do this job for 1 week longer, you're going to die. So you need to take 8 weeks vacation as far away from London as possible. And he did not come back until the last murder. It's absurd. But yeah, so all right. In the movie, Dr. William Gold is Jack the Ripper, and like I said, he's sort of caught and punished for his crimes, but this has never been proven. Jack the Ripper is still at large to this day, so women of Whitechapel remain vigilant. He's still out there. But did you guys know this, that Jack the Ripper is not more than... There's like a 99% chance that Jack the Ripper is not really the name of Jack the Ripper. So, the name Jack the Ripper and Saucy Jack come from letters that were written to basically the news house. And what a news house would do is they would get these stories and then sell them to newspapers for newspapers to then print. So, the name Jack the Ripper and talking about like Saucy Jack's work and I'm gonna cut off the ears of these ladies and yada yada yada, all of this stuff were sent to the news house, and they were first printed as official Jack the Ripper letters. The only real letter that can honestly be attributed to Jack the Ripper is not signed by Jack the Ripper. It's just not signed. So the moniker Jack the Ripper is probably made up by somebody who made a fake letter to sell newspaper articles, and like it's a theory in the book as well that like the news people are writing these letters and then using these letters as their news and coming up with it. But the From Hell letter is the only letter that is really truly believed to be from Jack the Ripper. And with that, he actually sent half of a kidney. And in the letter, he says that he ate the other half of the kidney. The kidney that he sent was the right kidney that was removed from one of the victims who had I forget exactly what it was, but basically like
some kind of alcoholism or something, right?
Yeah, the victim had like a psoriasis of the liver kidney type thing. Like it was, mutated and not functioning properly. And while they couldn't say it was absolutely her kidney, they were like, it was the same age of a woman of this with this condition, removed at this level, and it was a fresh removed kidney, not like something that you could pick off a cadaver that's been preserved. So, but yeah, Jack the Ripper is a complete false name is what I'm running with at this point, is that there is no real Jack the Ripper. This is just some fucking crazy dude.
I just assumed that was always just a name given to, and not like...
Well, I assumed, that the newspapers had given him the name, but like it's passed off that he gave himself the name, and that is not the case. So, like the Zodiac Killer gave his name. This is the Zodiac speaking. And in the other paper letters, this is Jack the Ripper, but there's no real evidence that those were actually written by Jack. So, lastly, as we talked about with Aberline, he in real life did not die of an overdose at a semi-young age. In the film, he's roughly probably in his 40s to 50s. And in real life, he died at the age of 86, with natural causes, not an opium, induced coma. And, he was married twice. His first wife, he married in 1868, and she died only 2 months after they were married, from tuberculosis. And then his second wife, he married in 1876, so 12 years before the Jack the Ripper murders. And they remained married until he died, so there obviously was no real love story or evidence that he had a relationship with Mary Kelly. So, is there anything else you guys want to talk about or say before we get into the special features here?
I think I would say this was a movie that had a lot of potential and just didn't quite live up to what it could have been.
Do you think it's the directors? I think they're out of their element.
Directors, and who wrote the script?
That's a good question.
Because there are a lot of good actors in this movie, giving, I think, the best performances they could give, with the material. But
Terry Hayes and Rafael Iglesias.
So Rafael Iglesias wrote also Dark Water, Fearless.
That's not something I'd be running around telling people about.
He did write Les Mis from 1998.
Les Mis,
yeah. Rising Sun, yeah, I don't know.
He's a novelist also, apparently.
Okay.
So that's...
your Terry Hayes guy wrote The Road Warrior and Thunderdome.
Yeah, he worked with George Miller there for a minute. This was his last movie.
I mean, let's
and he's 74, so he was not like ancient
so
at the time of writing.
You referenced Zodiac, which I think is a great movie. Imagine if like David Fincher,
superior movie.
David Fincher made this. God, please Fincher, please fucking make this movie.
Yeah, I could see someone like him who's good at this type of material, this like dark. I was gonna say gory. No, but like kind of beautifully gory and captivating, true crime stuff.
This would be an interesting one to look at the script and to see how much it marries to the movie. Like if you just and because my inclination is to unfortunately go to the director, even though these writers don't necessarily scream
Competence.
great quality material either to me, but given what they've done before and how different this is from that, and because you're partly trying to, and you're adapting something that is very difficult to adapt. Like there's a lot of things that could have went wrong with this that, in my opinion, did, and but it's not a terrible movie. It's a very watchable movie. There are far worse movies from 2001 you could be watching, but I just think like Allison said, I think it kind of nailed it. There's a lot of potential that isn't realized with this.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Fincher would have done an amazing job with this. Giving the period piece that it is, I would have loved to, like, now if we were to redo it, like, give me Robert Eggers and let him make it would be...
I want to see a Robert Eggers Jack the Ripper now. That could be...
Absolutely.
I'd
watch the fuck out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Guillermo del Toro would do a great job with this film, too. I think it would be a lot less brutal, though. I don't think it would be as graphic. I think Eggers meets the tone and the graphicness. But I think that del Toro would just capture your eye so much in this movie with some of the stuff,
he might do something really cool, like as a creatures design, like he could turn it into a whole, like be really far out with it in a way that could be.
I think he could take the supernatural element if you want to go that route
and actually do something with it.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So. Alrighty, guys, let's get into our special feature here. We're gonna talk today about some true crime. Josh had originally.
What have we been doing?
Yeah. Well, Josh had originally said, "Hey, if you want to talk about comic book movies, I can pass on Ghost World," and I was like, "No, I actually am more interested in the aspect of true crime because I think that in the early '90s, when I was a kid, like that was something that I was obsessed with. We had Unsolved Mysteries, which was like the show when I was younger, and it was something that like I just couldn't get enough of. And America was obsessed with the OJ case and John Benet Ramsey, and then you've got Dahmer and Gacy, Bundy, Richard Ramirez, etc. Like the early 2000s and 90s there was definitely an appetite for the consumption of true crime in some form of media. A lot of people were watching court cases on TV, and Unsolved Mysteries was probably the first and the earliest form of any kind of documentary of crime that we got to witness and watch. So like, did you guys know that in 1993 that HBO aired a real but fake trial for James Earl Ray, the man convicted of murdering Martin Luther King Jr.?
I did not know that.
Allison, were you aware of this?
No, but that seems like a very early 90s thing to do.
Yeah, so, I mean, this...
Given how they recreate stuff in Unsolved Mysteries and have
Yeah, but this is not recreated. HBO just put a live camera in a real courtroom with a real judge, with real lawyers fighting this case against James Earl Ray to convict him for murder, and also his lawyers trying to plead his innocence while James Earl Ray is not physically able to be there. He has to stay in his cell on a TV, but there's a live, real jury that is going to decide whether they think James Earl Ray is innocent or guilty of murdering Martin Luther King Jr.
Was this okay, I'm
real.
very confused.
So this is a real
No, but I mean, was
trial.
this meant to be like a real, like, we can convict him?
So this is what happened.
Or was this just like, we're just going to show people?
No. This is exactly what happened. So James Earl Ray pleads guilty to murdering Martin Luther King Jr., right? Almost immediately after that, he recants his statement and says that he made his statement basically under duress, and that he was terrified for his life because he's being threatened by some dark, shadowy figure The figure's name is Raoul, Raoul, who I believe he believes has some kind of ties to the CIA or FBI, some type of government entity. And so James Earl Ray, while he had already signed his conviction away and testified that he admitted it, he starts to recant that, and he never got a trial. They're like, we don't care that you're now pleading that you're innocent. You've already said that you're guilty. You're going to jail for life, buddy, and that's it. So his lawyer convinced a judge to hear his case and air it on live television for HBO to show, to see if a jury would say, actually, we believe him. He's not guilty. And hopes that they could reopen his case and he could actually get a real trial.
That is insane. Okay. I was reading about this a little bit too. That is wild.
The jury found him fucking innocent. And he did not get a retrial. That's wild to me.
This is fascinating.
Well, technically, they would have found him not guilty.
I'm sorry.
Right?
Yes,
because there would have been...
the jury found him not guilty. Correct. I'm sorry.
Because there would have been a... What's the term? I have dementia. Basically, the...
Double jeopardy?
Yeah.
No, you're trying to
beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes, beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, the beyond a reasonable doubt. There's actually... I believe Tenderfoot did it. I want to say, but it may not have been Tenderfoot. But somebody did a Who Killed Martin Luther King podcast, and they talk about James Earl Ray's side of the story and what he says really happened, and they go down this whole rabbit hole of him basically getting a confession beaten out of him and all of that stuff, and all the other theories to it. It is really interesting. But yeah, in 1993, which I just find is crazy. When you think of Martin Luther King and James Earl Ray, nobody ever discusses the fact that he actually pled his innocence and somewhat proved it in the court of public opinion, but nobody talks about it. He's still known as the guy that killed him, and it's not ever even saying, well, technically a jury sort of technically found him not guilty.
No, that's crazy. That feels like something it's weird that I had never heard about that.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. But his case, like I said, was, never reopened, and we just kind of slid the rug over that and acted like it never happened, and it'll never be written in the books of history either. So, yeah. In 2001, the most notable true crime event that happened actually ties to one of my favorite movies of this year, and we discussed it earlier. The staircase murder of Kathleen Peterson happened in December of 2001, and that, of course, ties to Murder on a Sunday Morning because the director of that film directed the Netflix documentary, which really sparked damn near all the new, streaming documentaries that have taken place since, as far as, Making a Murderer and, Murder in Glitterball City and all these other crazy.
Well, and from what I remember about that too, the director, I just had to look it up, Jean Javier de Lestrade. That staircase documentary was something that had existed a long time ago, and then Netflix ordered new episodes of that, because it was 15 years after the original series or something, and I guess that was it was in the zeitgeist again for some reason. Somebody had a retrial or something.
So, which is wild. And the staircase was probably one of the first things when people were like, have you seen the staircase? Yo, you need to check out the staircase. And then all of a sudden we started getting everything else. We got the documentary on Richard Ramirez. We got the documentary on John Wayne Gacy. We got the Ted Bundy tapes, and then we got, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. We got a Dahmer monster series, an Ed Gein monster series. I mean, true crime has just gone nuts ever since, and it's just one of those massive things that, now we have, millions of podcasts that are just dedicated to talking about true crime, or finding out, is Alex Murdaugh the person who murdered, the Murdaugh family? Did he kill his wife and kid? And
And not just podcasts like about big cases. Like you have shows like ours that are just three randos in Kentucky talking about movies, except it's three randos in Kentucky talking about cold cases just in Kentucky. You know, like I'm just making that up. I'm sure it exists. I'm confident it exists because that's the level of like interest that there is and appetite for people to talk with about this stuff, but also for people to listen to it and think about it. And
I mean, look at the Bardstown podcast. That started as a local reporter just investigating and making it into a podcast format. And now we've had multiple arrests, 10 years later, 15 years later, whatever, for Crystal Rogers and getting justice for her family. And I mean, that's just like a lot of this stuff is starting to make a difference, and some of it may be for better and some of it may be for worse. Like there may be podcasts out there that are saying, well, this person is definitely guilty and they may be wrong, so that's something that I think 25 years from now, we might see that happen, right? Where some of these new podcasts or whatever got the information wrong or warped information or withheld it and made somebody guilty in the court of public opinion before they had a trial. So I think we need to be careful with that, but I definitely think that's something that's going to end up happening eventually. But, any form of media that there is out there, a true crime junkie can find now. Whatever you want. If you want TikToks, if you want YouTube videos, I mean, there's like, if you watch the Gabby Petito documentary, or if you know anything about the death of Gabby Petito, like, YouTubers all over the world, like, united to help find this girl and catch her killer, and it's just, it's crazy. So, I just wanted to talk a few minutes about, how the consumption of true crime has evolved from 2001. And honestly, it's hard to tell whether or not, like, I don't know what you guys think, if you think it's grown more popular or it's just way more accessible in today's climate. Like, that's the main question.
I think it's that one. You're on mute, Allison. You go first.
I was gonna say, I think it's both, because I think streaming services perhaps have realized that, and it's like some of the true crime documentaries that show up, I'm like, this was clearly so cheaply produced and thrown together because you knew this was probably pretty cheap to make, and you could goad people into watching it because it's so salacious. And like every streaming service now has, I mean, it's just constant in my feed. So I think there's much more of it out there to try to, feed the beast, as it were. And I personally have like pretty complicated feelings about consuming true crime because I think it's become such
distasteful in some aspects.
Yes, like just for entertainment value, and like you mentioned the Gabby Petito thing, and I'm like, you can view that as like, oh wow, the internet came together, but the internet was also just straight up like harassing people who had no business doing any sleuthing. I mean, that comes up again also with the girl who died in the water tank of the Cecil Hotel.
Oh yeah, what is it? I watched that one. That was a Netflix one, right?
It was a Netflix one, but
Don't Fuck with Cats is another one.
Don't Fuck with Cats is a really insane one if you want to talk about the internet coming together to try to find somebody. But like, I don't know, they interview all these random people that I'm like, they really have no business being there, and they're just like ghouls showing up, like, a car crash, you can't look away. That being said, there are a few podcasts that I'll listen to, but the ones I do listen to, I think are pretty respectful. They go out of their way to cover cases that are lesser, Black women, women from other countries, like gay people that don't get as much attention in the media as your typical, Gabby Petito is a pretty young blonde. Okay. And I appreciate, and the ones I listen to do a lot of like really good research, and they're not quite so salacious. I used to try to listen to My Favorite Murder because that was kind of the first one that it's been around a long time and people are like, oh, I love it. And I'm like, I just can't they're trying to use humor to kind of diffuse the situation, but I found it extremely distasteful. And I'm like, I can't just be joking around about like what my favorite murder story is.
Yeah, I think the way people talk about it has changed a lot. I don't know that it's more popular, or it is certainly more accessible just because of the nature of how everything is more accessible than it was in 2001, for sure. And there is probably more volume of it than there was then, for sure. But I don't know that it was more popular because this stuff has been, as any form of media that's ever existed, this is kind of the thing that, it's the low hanging fruit in every, not just visual media or TV media, but even back with radio and newspapers. Like at the advent of those, like this is the kind of stuff that really captures people's attention right away. I mean, even in movies, like this, even though it wasn't, it's fictionalized, like the stuff that really was like driving movies for so long was noir and mystery, like murder mystery. It's like even in film, like that's the sort of the heart of the start of really what we come to know and love. So it's something. There's something in our brains that and maybe it's just our fascination with death and just evil people and what people are capable of, and the heinous things that some people seem to be capable of that we can't imagine doing ourselves. So I think that's where the obsession comes from. But I do think it's interesting that so much of this stuff still does lean into, because I back when in 2001 when it's like news and your Jerry Springer's, well, not Jerry Springer as much, but like Oprah, like stuff like that, is always, going to be talking about this stuff too. It was always like the pretty white girl, and it's weird that is still what really rises to the top of the heap and so much of this stuff. That part is interesting because what does that say about the obsession of it when, I think the fact that hasn't changed as much is pretty interesting. And I don't know, and people are aware of, that's the other thing. People are aware of that and it's still the case, and that's what's really, weird about it.
We actually had a professor, kind of do a Q&A a few years ago. I just sent you all the link. That's basically like, the headline said, why are we so obsessed with true crime? And he kind of goes into he's a law professor and a historian, like amateur historian, he says, but his answers are pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think true crime has become one of those things that I would have a hard time finding something that has exploded quite as much as it has in this generation. Yes, there's always been the demand and interest for it, but even music, I don't think has expanded quite the way that like true crime has as far as consumption goes. Because music you can stream now, and there's all these different platforms that you can stream it to, but you lost a platform in the sense that nobody goes to buy CDs or goes to the music store anymore. Like, yeah, it's easily accessible, but like people have multiple different subscriptions for all these different things, Patreons and YouTube channels and HBO and Netflix and Hulu, and they'll watch the HBO documentary on this case, and then they'll turn around and turn on Hulu, who has the same documentary but a different person made it, and they'll watch that one too. Like, I think the true crime is just like exploded so much. It's just, I don't know if anything's in the last 25 years has exploded the way that this has.
Well, I think the nature of, the biggest reason for that, other than just the array of services that are trying to fill their streams with content and different things to kind of keep people hooked, is the internet. Like the fact that we can congregate in this space that are a lot of times faces are removed from, people can feel more, because all of this stuff, even if it's the most tame crime, because people will treat, obviously so much of this stuff is very incredibly serious, but like people will treat like a dog going missing there's probably a fucking podcast about missing dogs out there, like that's treated with the same level of intensity as like a girl getting murdered, and it's probably crazily well done, like it's so, and people can gather in spaces and hide behind screen names and talk about this stuff and throw out theories, and it becomes like LARPing, almost like this live action role play thing, as much as it, everybody likes to play detective, and that obviously introduces problems, but it speaks to this thing that I think it does speak to this, weirdly, this community that people want, and this is an easy thing to quickly become a community because it is human, it is interesting to talk about this stuff and think about, why a person may do this evil thing, or, and what led to that. But it also, speaks people are lonely and want to just talk to people about stuff, and you might not have shared opinions on comic book movies or music or sports, you might not root for the same team as somebody else, but I think it is a universe. It is a language almost. Like I think everybody, it's something that even if you aren't inherently interested in it, you will still have an opinion about it if you hear something about it.
Yeah, I ended up watching The Crash on Netflix, kind of right after it posted, and I'm just like, oh, I'll just put this on, and good Lord, I'm not going to get into what that's about, but you definitely formed some opinions about the people being interviewed, but then, because we're all being tracked, my algorithms were nothing but like other people commenting on The Crash. And I found myself getting sucked in because I'm like, they're talking about how insane these people are. And I'm like, yes, they are. And then, of course, you watch one and then it's just one after the other after the other. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, the last thing I want to say about it, I totally agree with you, Allison, as far as that goes. Like it sucks you in, and it's, honestly, after I watch a good one, I can't wait to go to like work and be like, yo, have you heard about this yet? Talk about it. But the thing that scares me most about this is that I am worried that the demand and the attention on true crime is so high that I think it's almost inevitable that one day there's going to be a murderer who documents his crimes through podcasting or a YouTube channel that will go way too far, and won't be taken down fast enough by the FBI or whoever, and it's gonna.
That's kind of what "Don't Fuck with Cats" is about. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
I mean, the guy.
I know he's like murdering cats on film, right? And that.
It goes further. He's posting videos of he murders a guy. No, he's documenting.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It is pretty good. That one actually is worth watching.
Yeah.
see, and I'm like, God damn it.
I'm sorry, but no, I mean, like, okay, but I just think that, like, all right, there's gonna be
that it's gonna feed more into like, because sorry, no offense, Gen Z, but they're constantly
famous for this, right? Like, somebody's gonna want to be famous.
This is how I'm gonna get famous.
I mean, it's bad enough we got certain streamers that thinks it's okay to go live in public and start race riots by just calling people the N-word and say that they're,
yeah,
or you got people like that clavicular, is that a person?
I don't know. I didn't want to give the guy any credit for what.
No, so this is not the. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, it's a different person. This is some younger kid, like he's probably in his 20s, like young 20s, and like dude was out. He's on all kinds of these. He's like one of these looks maxing guys who's like hyper male, like can't fuck women because you need to be so.
Because you're too busy eating protein and working out all day.
that kind of like
eat pussy,
crazy
not protein,
toxic
buddy.
Dude.
Sorry.
And he was out with his friends, and they were streaming, and he was like clearly like ODing, like he was in mid overdose.
Oh, we watched
and they're
Andy
streaming
Dick
it,
overdose.
talking about it. Like,
are you talking about where Andy Dick overdosed?
No, well, yeah, I remember
that. Was on live too. That was crazy.
But this was like just some streamer, out there like doing his thing, and it's like, we've certainly, that whole culture is certainly, I think, tied to this. The reason that exists is sort of the same reasons why I think this stuff manifests. This is slightly off topic, but I did want to bring up, when we talked a long time ago, it was probably the No Man's Land episode about like our favorite foreign movies and things. And I just completely blanked. I put it in the YouTube episode, like the image, and rectified it there. But I did want to bring up, because it ties to this topic. The movie Red Rooms, it came out in 2023 or 2024. It's a French-Canadian movie. It is easily the best movie I've seen since Parasite. I probably like it maybe more than Parasite. It is, and I think it's an incredible movie, and it's basically about this, like about the obsession with true crime and what that looks like. And there's like 3 or 4 like scenes in it that are just haunting, like incredible shots that were like, whoa, like it's pretty fucking good. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, have either of you seen Undertone, that movie that came out earlier this year?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but it's sort of about this a little bit, ain't it? Or is it the at least somebody in that is a true crime podcaster or something?
They are. They have a true crime podcast, but it's the main podcasting girl basically is being haunted, for lack of a better word. Like it's so interesting how she is almost the only character in the whole movie. Like you hear her podcast companion's voice, but you never see him because they record remotely. And like her mother is a character that pops up from time to time, but that movie is better than it has any reason to be, given that it's like almost entirely focused on audio. It's really well done.
Huh. I thought it looked interesting when I saw a trailer for it before it came out, and I had kind of hadn't thought about it until we were coming into this episode, and I thought, oh, that's something I should bring up. But
yeah, it's a spooky supernatural movie. She just happens to be a true crime
want to
person.
Check that out. But listeners and you guys, Red Rooms is like fucking awesome. Like, it ain't spoiling anything. Like the first like 10 minutes of the movie are shot in like with this tracking shot that is just like, I might just be like a film nerd like about it, but it is fucking awesome. Like, it is a really cool movie.
Okay. Well, let's get back to the historically accurate true crime movie. 25 years later, guys, does From Hell matter?
No.
Yeah, I have a hard time finding a reason to say yes.
I mean, the story behind it, obviously, but the movie doesn't do that story justice.
Here is why I will say it matters.
God damn it, Slate.
No. Listen.
There's gonna be a twist.
Listen, Linda. No. Like, if you were to ask me in a vacuum, does this movie matter? I'm gonna say no. Okay? But because you both are saying no, I do want to play devil's advocate and say that the only way that I will say that this movie matters is if you watch this movie and it makes you do what I did, where you're like, you know what? I want to read the book. And then you read the book. And then if the book makes you want to, you know what? Like, I want to know how much of this is real and what they took and what they didn't, like what really happened, and start doing documentaries and podcasts and reading, crime reports and autopsy reports and newspaper clippings and letters, like really diving down the Jack the Ripper hole to educate yourself, not only on the case, but like the conditions and what these people were living in and what life was like in 1888 in Whitechapel and in London, then it matters. If you watch this movie just to watch this movie, you will enjoy this movie, especially if you don't know anything about what this movie is about and you just know, Jack the Ripper killed a bunch of prostitutes. You'll like this movie. You might not love the ending, but for the most part, you'll enjoy the movie, I think. So, but it doesn't matter. It didn't do anything great for the Hughes brothers. I honestly think they may have been the worst decision.
It might have killed their career, honestly, in some ways. I mean, I know they do Book of Eli a little bit later, but
isn't that like Sully's favorite movie?
He's a fan. It's come up before.
Book of Eli is a good movie, but like they're just. I don't think they were a fit for this film.
His favorite movie is Big Lebowski, though.
And part of me wonders if this movie had taken the same approach that Harry Potter did, in the sense that we're only going to hire English actors and actresses, maybe an English director and writer too, where would we have been, right? Or like you said, Allison, if Fincher had made this movie, or God, please, Robert Eggers, like I know Werewolf's going to be amazing. Make this movie next, please.
That werewolf trailer looks fucking awesome.
Werewolf looks fantastic. But I'm just saying, yes, no, the movie does not matter. But if this movie makes you read the book, which is one of the like iconic graphic novels of all time,
super acclaimed. Like I think it won some of those awards that we talked about back with Ghost World. That it won some of those same awards.
It's a very good book. You probably could have cut 60 to 70 pages out of it. But it's good. Like it is. He's like Stephen King, where he goes on these tangents where you're like, all right, I don't need 3 pages to tell me how detailed this pencil is that somebody's holding. But no, I mean, it is a very good book. So if this movie makes you want to read the book or dive deeper into the case and learn more about who these women were and these victims and their story, then yes, then I think this movie matters.
I have a weird question kind of bouncing off that.
Okay.
Do you think it's possible, and I'm mostly thinking about our Gen Zs and younger, do you think it's possible that a person would encounter this movie without knowing anything about Jack the Ripper?
Absolutely.
I think it might be, and I think that would be a weird way to think about it. And then if they just didn't care after watching it, they're like, and they just thought it was all fictional, like that would be that's a weird thing to think about.
I think that absolutely could happen. Like I'm telling you right now, if I walked into my second job at Texas Roadhouse and was talking to some servers about like, oh, what's your favorite Johnny Depp movie? And they start naming stuff off, and I'm like, oh, you like Ninth Gate? Have you seen From Hell? No, what's that? Check out From Hell. And just not even tell them what it's about, and then have them like report back to me. I would be curious to see like how many of them liked it. 1, 2, knew like who Jack the Ripper was, if this was real or anything about it, and if this like educated them at all on the situation and all of that. I think that's a very fun like study that we could do.
Because I do think it takes I agree with you, because I do think it takes a certain type of person, and it's taken me a long time to realize this and reconcile this about myself, and I think this is applicable to both of you. A lot of people just aren't curious. Like they will watch something and that's where it ends.
See, okay, yes. And that goes back to Slate when you were saying, "Oh, I hope this like inspires someone."
Oh, you guys are just shitting on me. Okay.
No, but
yeah, good luck. Nobody's gonna fucking read that book after watching that movie, buddy.
No, here's what I'm gonna say. The reason I think that inaccuracies in a movie like Pearl Harbor bother me more than a movie like this is because something like this is very salacious. People already have like. I think people are more likely to be curious to be like, oh my god, I want to read about Jack the Ripper because this was so crazy and, murder and scandal. Versus like Pearl Harbor, like, ugh, fucking boring history. I saw the movie, I know what happened, And that's like...
You're probably right.
and yes,
my daddy got the shell shock.
My daddy got the shell shocks.
Bomb go boom.
People aren't curious. I mean, there's been times when I can't think of anything right off the top of my head immediately, but I've gone to see a movie based on a true story. It's something pretty serious, and then I have absolutely gone down a rabbit hole of reading all of the history behind it, and I was like, I don't think most people do this.
I mean, I did that with this movie, but I didn't have to. Like when I drafted this movie, I had already listened to like the morbid 7 hours worth of podcasting that they did on this case. And but when I drafted this movie, I didn't know it was based off a graphic novel written by Alan Moore.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
Josh Moore told me that. He said, "Hey,
that's
my British uncle wrote a book. You should read it."
Yeah, I think anyone who watches this movie is going to have no idea that it was based on a book.
Probably not, because he
credits.
kind of wanted his name removed from all his stuff too. So it's
but I mean, but I was, once I found that out, I was like, okay, I definitely want to read the book now. And I remember like listening to the Morbid podcast the first time and just being blown away by it. And I revisited it obviously like this year for this and took a lot more notes, dove deeper into it, really did a lot more research with it, started watching some really poorly made British documentaries as well, some YouTube theories, of course, and then I also listened to like another 5-hour long worth of episodes from Unorthodox. Their entire season 3 is also on Jack the Ripper in Whitechapel in 1888, and it has a lot more to do with some politics and women that are starting to unionize and in the job workplace and stuff on the West End and all of that. So, but yeah.
So your algorithm's interesting right now. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm telling you, man. You know, I thought it was odd when DoorDash asked me if I wanted tea and crumpets,
but bangers and mash.
Bangers and mash. Yeah. I tell you what, though, like I definitely would love to go to London and sit at the 10 Bells pub. I think that would be neat because that is an iconic place where all of these people really were seen, you know, the night of their murders and multiple visits and stuff. And at one point they had renamed it, and I honestly think they renamed it Jack the Ripper's Bar, something like that. And they eventually were like, yeah, that's not a great name for this place. And
talk about like just crass, like
and they renamed it back to 10 Bells, which I think it should stay forever. If I'm ever in London, that place would be like probably the first place I want to go. You know, it is a historic piece of history at this point. So, but now that we've caught the evil Jack the Ripper and given him a lobotomy, and then followed that up by making sure to never visit the love of our life who is supposed to be dead, it's time for us to take one last opium trip and fade off into obscurity. Josh, Allison, anything else you guys got to say?
Movie's worth a watch.
Yeah, it's very watchable. The environment, I mean, the atmosphere, I think, is probably the thing it nails the best. Like, the atmosphere is really well done. The cinematography is really good. We also, I mean, you did touch on it, Allison. Obviously, this movie's part of our Kentucky month, and we didn't really talk a whole lot about Johnny Depp. I don't know that we really need to at all, but it was, this was, you touched on it, this was kind of his, like, peak, you know, like, where he was sort of, or not his peak, but, like, kind of as he's getting ready to ascend with the pirate stuff.
Yeah, like his first, like, leading big budget film before he
This is the era where, like, everybody loved Johnny Depp, and he's kind of on the rise, and like, oh my god, he's so handsome and so cool and doing so many, like, you know, great performances, and unfortunately
yeah, he kind of went off the tail end, to say the least. And
speaking of true crime, he's got his own true crime documentary about the about his case with Amber Heard.
Oh my god,
that's on Netflix. Check that
out. I can't watch any of that.
It's interesting to say the
least. From either one of them, I'm like, that is just a hot
just
mess.
Done.
Yeah,
it's hot. All right, right on the pillow, hot and steamy.
Hot and steamy.
Okay.
Speaking of hot and steamy.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry. I probably dropped the ball talking about doing this film, obviously in Kentucky Week because of Johnny Depp, but
I mean, I don't think there's really a whole lot to even talk about beyond what we've just said. Really, it's just.
I thought it was more important to really talk about the women in the case here, but yeah. So
no,
Johnny Depp was part of. Obviously, you know, he's a Kentucky native. We love him. and love Kentucky. So it's Kentucky month. So continuing our Kentucky month, you need to tune in next week as Allison leads us on a discussion with another Kentucky boy. We will pull off the ultimate heist with our guy, George Clooney.
That's right. AKA Hunks Be Stealin'.
Hunks Be Stealin'.
We're going to cover Ocean's 11. So, yeah.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you've never seen it?
I've never seen it.
To be clear, Ocean's 11 2001, not the older version.
Not the Rat Pack one? Dang it.
Not the Rat Pack version. This movie is so watchable. It's like it's one of those that like it comes on TV. I'm like, well, shit, I gotta sit down and like, sit here and watch it. It shows up on streaming, and I'm like, I guess I gotta sit here and watch it now.
I haven't watched it either, so
okay. I believe I've actually seen Ocean's 12, but I don't remember much.
Inferior.
The only thing I remember is we're in Barney. What? Barney, Trouble. With Don Cheadle. I think that's Ocean's 12. Might be 13. I don't know.
But yeah, it's just a whole group of good-looking guys taking off a casino, and it is so fun.
I love a heist movie. I'm here for it. So, but thanks again, guys, for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, like and comment on our videos, subscribe to our podcast page, and leave a review. And lastly, if some old chap and a creepy coachman offer ye some grapes, tell that jolly old fuck to buzz off.
And wash your produce, guys.
Yeah, give it a good whiff.
What is hell? I mean, the movie's called From Hell. Mm-hmm. What is hell for you? And when you explain hell, explain heaven. Is that then a boring place, maybe?
Boy, what is hell? What is hell and what is heaven? Well, hell... Hell was certainly the, waking up and on September 11th and seeing that atrocity, sort of unfold before the eyes of the world. That was about as close, I think, to hell as any of us will get for a while. That was, devastating is too tiny a word. And heaven is, like I was talking about before, just the ability, to really not take for granted the gift of life, the gift of breath, and that every breath is a blessing, and that we all, we have our families, we have our wives, our kids, our husbands, or whatever, moms, sisters, brothers. That's heaven, I think.